Recalibrating the U.S. Republic of Korea Alliance, Strategic Priorities for 2026. This topic and more on The Impossible State.
North Korea is the impossible state. It's a place that stumped leaders and policymakers for more than 3 decades. It has a complex history, and it has become one of the United States' top national security priorities. Each week on this show, we'll talk to the people who know the most about North Korea.
So here we are after an action-packed 2025 where much clarity among some turmoil and change in the U.S. ROK relationship was achieved. We have new leaders in both countries. We now have a better understanding of the posture toward the alliance of both President Trump, surprising many skeptics by his engagement in the alliance and the fact that he is not an isolationist, anti-alliance president, and by President Lee, who, in spite of perceptions that as a progressive leader he would be somehow lukewarm on the alliance or not ready to engage with President Trump, through 2 highly successful summits, we see the maturity and growth of the alliance and potential ways forward. We've also watched how the President Lee has begun to engage Xi Jinping in terms of the ROK China alliance, an important part of actually the U.S. ROK alliance. And then finally, we have a fact sheet which gives a great roadmap for a number of key issues going forward. So today we have 2 outstanding experts from the Sejong Institute in the Republic of Korea who have joined us today to talk about these issues. First is Dr. Chansong Lee, Research Fellow at the Center for Diplomatic Strategy at the Sejong Institute. Dr. Lee received his doctorate here at SAIS at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. He worked as a researcher at the Science and Technology Policy Institute in the Republic of Korea and as a visiting fellow at the Institute of International Studies at Seoul National University. He holds a BA in English Literature and Language and Political Science and International Relations at Koryo University, an MA in International Relations at Seoul National University, and of course, as we mentioned, his doctorate from SAIS. Dr. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sydney, for having me.
We have Dr. B. Yoonjo B. Right? You go by B? B. Last name, Cho, Dr. Cho. Dr. Cho is a research fellow at the Center for Strategic Strategy, for Security Strategy at Sejong, also a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. Her research focuses on South Korea's deterrence and defense strategy, particularly as it relates to U.S. extended deterrence and nuclear strategy. She has a Bachelor of Fine Arts with honors from Rhode Island School of Design, an MA and PhD in International Studies from the Graduate School of International Studies at Seoul National University. And she is currently an advisory committee member of MOFA's Department of Arms Control of Non-Proliferation. Dr. Cho, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So as we look at the relationship and we look at where it stands in big terms, we have President Lee Jae-myung, who has come forward and said that he will pursue a policy of national interests first, pragmatic diplomacy toward the United States. How does that contrast to predecessors? What's new and what's not new in this? Dr. Lee, if you could open us up with that.
Of course, yes, Sydney. Thank you again for having me on this podcast. Such a great honor for me. So, Wee Sung-nak, National Security Advisor to President Lee, once mentioned, if China and the United States are placed at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock on a clock, respectively, South Korea should position itself somewhere in between 1:30. So, pragmatic approach, pragmatic foreign policy of the Lee administration has flexibility and creativity. So, pragmatism as a philosophical foundation asks us the question, what difference does this idea make, right, in practice? Yeah. How does this idea solve problems we have? And President Lee, to my knowledge, is a problem solver. He was the successful governor and worked hard and tried to solve the problems even with unconventional ways. So flexibility in terms of foreign policy means it sets a dynamic spectrum
Right.
rather than fix the category to place and implement foreign policy. It dials, foreign policy directions. It contains creativity. Yeah, it open to the ideas from different policymaking groups. So by far, I believe his approach based on pragmatism has been successful. He hasn't made any significant mistakes in dealing with the Trump administration. He successfully, shook off the image of anti-American, anti-Japanese policy, which is, typically imposed upon the left government in Korea. But it remains to be seen whether, the policy is going to generate substantial outcomes in the end or not.
Yeah, when it comes to foreign policy, I sense we often look at ourselves in terms of our policy and our approaches, our decisions, in a way that somewhat diminishes or lays aside the question of agency of the counterparts. So as we talk about North Korea policy, what will Donald Trump's North Korea policy be? What will Lee Jae-myung's policy be? It's really more driven by what Kim Jong-un's willing to accept or willing to pursue. And so, pragmatism means you're simply not going to be driven by ideology, but you will adjust to and adapt to and pursue policies that make sense from a way that's not ideological nor, particularly stubborn and adhering to some formula that may or may not be appropriate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would very much echo what's been already said. But the first word that comes to my mind when I think about Lee Jae-myung's administration's pragmatism is a word which does not really have a fully nuanced translation in English, which is 눈치.
Right.
It means you are being quick-witted. You can read the room. So put in a good way, you are being shrewd. Put it differently, it's about opportunism. And if I sum up what Lee Jae-myung administration did in 2025 towards Washington, I think it was all about this 눈치, trying to see what Trump is expecting, what are the demands are. We waited how Japan and EU would respond. And when the deal was clearer, such as the $350 billion US deal, I think Lee Jae-myung administration tried to meet the demands while also taking good 눈치 of the domestic constituencies, reaching a kind of the nuclear submarine deal, for instance. So the net effect, I think I would agree with Dr. Lee, which is that the approach to Washington was good, not bad at all at this time. But the question, I think, what remains is how this could be held in 2026. As you already mentioned, we had the China Xi Jinping, Lee Jae-myung and Xi Jinping summit, and that image, I think, for me, had a little bit of gap between what Lee Jae-myung spoke about when he was here at CSIS last year in 2025 August. He said that depending on security for United States and depending on economic cooperation for China, will no longer be sustained. Right. And so he portrayed a kind of alliance first image. But will he be able to do that when China is actually really banging Japan, making model out of Japan to countries that cross their lines? So that's something that we have to be looking out for, I think.
I guess in that regard, it's still yet to be seen which direction the ROK-China relationship will go under President Lee, in large part because there's almost been a wait-and-see stance on Beijing's part on a range of foreign policy issues, awaiting the upcoming summit with Donald Trump, and then finally, charting the road ahead on Taiwan, given the current atmosphere and feelings. Where do you think, if President Lee were to be challenged with, what side do we fall on in a China-U.S. conflict, particularly over Taiwan? Do we maintain neutrality? Do we naturally gravitate towards helping the United States and Taiwan defend itself? Or do we do the pragmatic approach that doesn't harm the relationship with the PRC? Where do you think he would fall on that today? Or he'd rather withhold comment until the situation arises?
How would you? Should I?
Yeah, please.
sorry.
Yes,
Oh.
go ahead.
Well, I think, well, we will have to see, but I think Lee Jae-myung administration or any other government that may be in power in South Korea right now, I think the structural conditions have really changed. And I think the main key kind of evidence is how Lee Jae-myung administration is even talking about the West Sea installations by China, the artificial infrastructures. That this is somewhat unprecedented if we consider how South Korea approached the China question. So I think there is a kind of a structural development, but does it mean that South Korea would move to a position where, like Takaichi Prime Minister, I would say no to that question, because for most of the region is that we don't have to. If we look at the joint fact sheet between ROK US recently, we agreed that US's conventional deterrence posture in the region will be enhanced to address all threats, including North Korea. So we already agreed on strategic flexibility without mentioning it. So I think our baseline is already there, and we have a consensus that we don't have to mention this, but work through responding to both DPRK and growing threats in the region.
So another issue that there's a lot of attention being paid focus to, obviously, is the sustained growth of North Korea's nuclear program, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Every year their arsenal grows in terms of the number of weapons, both the devices, the number of the devices, as well as the number of the delivery mechanisms, enhanced in part by lessons learned on the battlefield in Russia. What differentiates, I think, the Lee Jae-myung administration and its approach to the North Korea issue from perhaps the other progressive predecessors like Moon Jae-in is that there really is a concern that unaddressed South Korea's security is being put at risk. So, Dr. Lee, you studied a lot on the nuclear issue and the nuclear policy issue. Where do you believe the Republic of Korea feels it is in terms of confidence in the extended deterrence of the United States? Is it something that they have more confidence on now that the Nuclear Consultative Group is moving, their continued extended deterrence demonstrations, declaratory language out there? Or do you believe that we're in a situation where the Republic of Korea feels that the U.S. is not a reliable partner and it needs to go down its own path? How has that emerged over the first months of the Lee Jae-myung administration?
So, based on the various official public documents of the U.S. government, we clearly see the United States has recommitted to extended deterrence provided to the Republic of Korea. But as you mentioned, there is a growing uneasiness of alliance assurance given to the Republic of Korea. Also, the extended deterrence is not a blanket check anymore. There are conditions to attach to it. For instance, the U.S. government nowadays requests U.S. allies to increase its defense spending, and for particular allies, specific allies, ask to make industrial investment in the United States as a condition, and also specifically for the Indo-Pacific region, the United States is asking its allies to contribute to collective defense, especially in the first island chain. So there are conditions attached to the extended deterrence, while we see the advancing nuclear capabilities of North Korea and neighboring countries. So I think relatively the liberal government in Korea does not emphasize the assurance problem, the lack of alliance assurance, compared to the conservative government. Perhaps, based on their threat perception, perhaps their understanding of North Korea and China. But overall, I think it's a growing concern and problem for South Koreans to secure the strong extended deterrence, strong assurance from the United States.
So there was a slight shift in the name of seeking to create an atmosphere conducive to potentially a Donald Trump, Kim Jong-un meeting there in Gyeongju, right? Where the exercise, the U.S. ROK annual exercises were shifted in terms of their timing. And the messaging probably was the volume, as we like to call it, the volume of the messaging was rolled back. But the exercise went on. The extended deterrence signaling with, B-52 flights and nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers, those types of events seem to continue under the leadership of Donald Trump, who back in 2018, in the midst of the diplomacy with North Korea, was inclined to say, we don't need to have these exercises, we don't need to be provoking North Korea, let's create, again, an atmosphere conducive for diplomacy. It seems that President Lee is both pragmatic in terms of maintaining these important elements of deterrence, while also seeking to create that environment, as the Unification Ministry kind of advocates for, not doing things that irritate North Korea. Is this a temporary phenomena, or do we expect that to change in 2026 under Lee Jae-myung?
For me, I think that really depends on how North Korea would act in 2026. As you would very much heard from the media already, there's a North Korea allegation of South Korean drones again. And so it's that there, in South Korea, there are currently a lot of debate about what's the intent here. Is it really from South Korea? If it's from South Korea, is it for North Korea to use it as a kind of stepstone for dialogue, or is it to consolidate its adversarial to Korea policy by raising this issue? It's very hard to make this evaluation right now because we are still very early into the phenomenon. But all that said, I think if I go back to President Lee Jae-myung's kind of baseline formula, fingers crossed, but I think this administration, at least under Ri Sung-rak, National Security Advisor, I think the assurance formula from the United States remains the key important cornerstone of South Korea's security. So I think Dr. Lee already mentioned, but the joint fact sheet, the 57 Security Consultative Meeting joint communique, all reiterate U.S.'s provision of extended deterrence, including the phrases like full range of capabilities, including nuclear. So what this sends to Lee administration is that we don't have to be panicked about, so there will be nuclear backstop by U.S. But I think what we have to work on is the costly signaling, because what really changed from Lee Jae-myung, Trump, and Yoon Suk-yeol and Biden administration statements is that from 2022, we always had the phrase, any nuclear attack by North Korea will be end of Kim regime. It will be responded swiftly, overwhelmingly, and decisively. These were the phrases, but these are now absent. So the punitive language is no longer there, which I think, as Dr. Lee mentioned, I think it reflects the government's perception of the threat. But I think for me personally, the end of Kim regime, this kind of punitive language was, in my view, key component in deterring North Korea's recklessness actions. So if we are not having these phrases out, then we need to look for other ways to continue to send the message.
So if I may,
Yes,
just
please.
add one thing to what B just mentioned. If we look at domestic politics now in Korea, the other faction within the Lee administration is kind of giving a chance to alliance group, which is led by Lee Sung-nak now. And if they do not produce, the alliance group does not produce some substantial outcomes, which they promise, probably increasingly their position will be challenged by this faction.
So what are those outcomes that they're hoping that Lee Sung-nak's team might produce?
So 1, 2, 3 agreement, to be revised or upgraded, to allow South Korea to enrich uranium, to the reprocessing, or nuclear power submarines, of course, or OPCON transition. All the topics that probably we are going to cover today, and some other.
Right. Well, it's interesting because these aren't necessarily policy objectives that one would associate with kind of the left side of the progressive camp, but rather ways simply to hold Lee Sung-nak particularly potentially vulnerable or accountable for diplomatic failures that can then shift. Because I can't see areas of strengthening the alliance, like pursuing a nuclear submarine, getting 1, 2, 3, as things that progressives seeking to engage North Korea would be advocating, because these will also alienate North Korea. Am I missing something here?
I think you're definitely right.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to imply, there is a group in President Lee's camp, factional group, to take more assertive approach toward North Korea, to provide and to give more, dramatic gesture to make the relationship more friendly and start conversation, dialogue, and so.
What are the parameters within which those gestures would fall? What would they advocate doing that's not being done now?
Loosening the UN sanctions against North Korea.
Okay.
Probably positioning themselves closer to China and trying to start some sort of economic cooperation, and probably making friendly approach to the Russian government, and asking some sort of a mediating role between the two Koreas, and some other unilateral military measures toward North Korea. Yeah.
I was in Korea for the 2018 pivot to diplomacy, and also had been there for 2016, 2017 pivot to diplomacy, and then the ultimate failure of diplomacy, which was kind of a lack of interest on Kim Jong-un's part in what Moon Jae-in was able to put on the table credibly, that the economic assistance and sanctions relief that was diplomatically possible, or even domestically, politically possible for Moon Jae-in simply was not interesting to Kim Jong-un.
Right.
I would assume then that this group advocating for a more aggressive approach towards North Korea assumes the North would welcome it. There's no other grand gesture, because when you mention it, and I think they're all very credible, like sanctions relief, economic cooperation and exchange, but there's really no signal I would see from Pyongyang yet that they would be receptive.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for North Korea right now, there's really, I think the situation is really different from 2018 and right now. North Korea, in my view, is more interested in engaging with Russia,
Right.
China, and there's really no incentive to seek kind of a relief of sanctions in compensation of what they are pursuing right now. So that's why I think they put out the two adversarial policy. Based on that, they are building their normalized state relation with these major powers, including United States, which diminishes all the options that South Korean government may give, will not be interested to their military or nuclear programs.
So what are, kind of on a tangent here, what does the Republic of Korea fear in terms of unpredictability on the United States side in its North Korea policy? You know, as somebody who had gone in a number of times during the Obama administration on secret visits, I know that things can move rather quickly when there's some type of agreement between Pyongyang and Washington. But at the end of the day, there's no strategic shift. It's a tactical decision to engage. It's not like Kim Jong-un has woken up and finally decided nuclear weapons are no longer necessary. What is it, though, that really kind of captures what the ROK people, ROK leadership might fear in terms of U.S. policy in 2026 towards North Korea? Either.
For the Lee administration, they badly want to see the dialogue between Trump and Kim. They would welcome any peaceful approach to North Korea. I think it's a part of stability purpose, and also part of enhancing the relationship between the two Koreas. So that's why we do not see the kind of a harsh, like punishing sentences from the government document to the joint fact sheet from the NCG meeting, because they are opening, the possibility.
Right, both
to
Washington and Seoul would be happy with the softening of that language for kind of the same objective, hoping it would not, at the very least, it would not be seen by the outside world as hypocritical or further exacerbating the situation on the ground.
So yeah, for North Korea, I do not see much divergence between Lee and Trump, but the divergence would come from the U.S. policy toward China, and also the Republic of Korea's relation with China.
What's your sense in that regard in terms of what does South Korea believe will be the direction of U.S. PRC relations, starting with or surrounding the visit to China of President Trump and the talks with Xi that he'll have? What do you see going forward?
Well, I think the overarching image that we have right now is the Western Hemisphere that's being really emphasized through the national security strategy. I'm still writing this, but I'm writing a piece about this division of labor and division of commitment, which is if I compare it to the Biden administration, I think Biden administration tried to put together North Korea-focused South Korea, China-focused Japan, and Europe, Russia-focused Europe to kind of lattice work of alliances. So it was a division of commitment, division of labor towards a kind of collective action. But right now, the language of the national security strategy is more of South Korea take the overwhelming responsibility of the Korean Peninsula, and hence its conventional capabilities. For allies, increase your defense budgets. So it seems there is a more outright division of labor. And of course, we are still holding this through all the reiteration of U.S.'s statements for extended deterrence, joint fact sheet, all the joint statements that have been coming out. But my concern is that from the adversary's point of view, this could read really as a division of commitment. I think the reason why North Korea or China or other countries did not go to more of a military aggressive action is because of the concern that U.S. is still here. And so I think it's a psychological thing, but I think this going back to your question about U.S.-China relations, I think that's a kind of environment where U.S. is focusing on the the hemisphere and kind of allow China a certain increased room for maneuverability in the Pacific or East Asian region, inviting more of opportunistic calculations by the adversaries in the region.
I think there is a degree to which the president sees deterring bad behavior as enhanced through economic prosperity. And if somehow there can be a U.S. PRC agreement on trade and tariffs, and there was a way in which China need not be seen as an economic adversary, that a better behaving China would be less inclined to use military force or be aggressive, as you mentioned. I think on the Korea piece, I understand the concern, but having been on the peninsula on and off since 1982, there are 28,000. I've seen this firsthand. There are 28,500 U.S. troops, give or take, a couple hundred or thousand here or there, that provide a deterrent, but are not the ones who are going to lead the ground battle. It is the Republic of Korea with its active and reserve forces who already owned the ground battle, right? So there's nothing really new in the U.S. calling on Korea to take responsibility for its defense. It does to a degree. I think it's just a way that you package the value of 28,500 and the need for those troops without looking like you're dependent on them or you're slacking in paying for your own defense because you've got these Americans there. And in that regard, the president's comments on 28,500 troops I found reassuring after, again, having been in Korea at a time back in 2018, 2019, where the possibility of troop reductions along the line of what we'd seen in previous administrations was real. So the president's commitment of 28,500 troops is a commitment to the Republic of Korea's security that I think sometimes is underestimated or underweighted compared to, how many B-52s it's sending or, it's... So related to that is OPCON. And, OPCON's a complicated issue because, on the one hand, as you look at the conditions under which conditions-based wartime OPCON transfer might take place are conditions that you could make sure were never met. The ability to counter North Korea's nuclear missile capabilities is only met when the Republic of Korea has 100 nuclear weapons. And we know that's not the case. Where do you think we'll head on OPCON going forward? What is, President Moon Jae-in's commitment to wartime OPCON transfer was real, and it was sustained and ultimately not pursued to its culmination because the timing and conditions weren't right. Is that going to be the same, or we see more flexibility, more of a political imperative to be not so demanding on the conditions or the technical dimensions?
Go ahead. Sure.
Well, President Lee Jae-myung administration's national policy includes transferring the wartime OPCON within his administration. So it's a stated goal of the administration. And I think what this tells is that we are now back to a kind of time-based approach to OPCON transfer. As you know, my friend Dr. Clint worked at National Defense University. I loved his phrase. He described the history of OPCON issue as kicking the can down the road. From Nomuya administration, it was about pushing the deadline to the next administration. The Lee Myung-bak administration pushed to Park Geun-hye administration, and under Park Geun-hye administration, that was when we changed to the condition-based approach. But now, under the 57th Security Consultative Meeting, we agreed that we will finish the second step, full-time operational capability, FOC, by 2026. And I think that now we are setting a date for the second stage. And if that's really done by 2026, then we will probably set another date for the last condition, which is the full-time mission capability, whether we have the amicable security environment for the transfer, which is, in my view, more of a political decision by the leaders. So, but then, so for time-wise, I think it will be fastened. But then in terms of feasibility, I think it will be limited because of the complexity of what we agreed in 2018 for the future Combined Forces Command. We agreed that the 4-star general will lead, South Korean 4-star will be the head of the commander. It will be the commander. And the 4-star U.S. general will be the deputy. But if we are really we're really seeing U.S. increase of conventional deterrence posture in the region, as we are already seeing the MQ-9 Reaper drone squadrons, and there are talks about F-35 squadrons, one permanent, one rotational. So if these kind of conventional buildups do happen, would U.S. really go back to the 2018 version where the commander will be led by South Korean general? So I think the second stage of this full-time operational capability may include both countries to revisit the structure of future Combined Forces Command, which may take more time than 1 year. So I'm just guesstimating. So and all the other regions, such as domestic divisions on whether this is good or not, considering all that, we'll have to see if it's really could be done by this administration.
Yeah, I fully agree with it. It can be done, with a strong political will from both governments. But personally, I think it wouldn't be possible to meet all these conditions. For the OPCON transition. There are lots of issues to discuss. As we already mentioned, there is a command and control problems structure, dual reporting system of the U.S. deputy commander, reporting to the South Korean commander and reporting to the Indo-Pacific commander. There is, the discussion about the role of the UNC after this, and also the role of chairman, chief of staff in Korea, and the new commander to these combined forces. So we have to tackle down these issues. But primarily, the security environment surrounding the Korean Peninsula is getting worse. It's not very conducive to this OPCON transition. And I think although this current administration want to achieve this transfer within 5 years, but it will be practically difficult. But I personally support this kind of a transparent discussions about the OPCON transition, because for the last 20 years, the ROK has substantially improved its military capabilities to meet these conditions. So it's like students are learning by taking tests, right? They actually learn more from the failed tests, right? So I think we should set very high conditions for the transition, and the ROK military will have to figure out which capabilities they do not have, they have to invest more, and which experience they do not have and need more support from the United States. So throughout these discussions, probably in the end it will be beneficial for the ROK.
And going forward, looking back to the Moon Jae-in administration, he started his term of office too with a commitment during his tenure to accommodate OPCON transfer, and so the idea that President Lee Jae-myung could do the same and eventually not follow through on it is not so far-fetched. What's the general Korean public's interest in this issue? Is this a make or break? For example, if you don't have OPCON transfer, everything Lee Jae-myung has said about autonomy and self-reliance is a myth, or is it an issue that the average Korean would understand whichever way it broke?
Well, in terms of general sentiments, I think as I kind of alluded a little bit, there is, I think, still a division of how we approach this problem, this question of OPCON transfer. On the side where they emphasize the South Korea's conventional buildup, who are confident, they say it's time to do it, and actual change would allow South Korea to really push through its defense reform, which is another critical agenda for South Korea, because our current military troop level is about 450,000. And due to population cliff, we are expected to go down to maybe 35,000 by 2030 or 2035. So it is a significant decrease. But as all the institutions are, there are inertias, and stimulus like OPCON transfer could be the real kick to really reform the military to fit to the current modern warfare. But on the other side, there are serious concerns that if the OPCON is transferred, then maybe the U.S.'s conventional deterrence capabilities on ground on South Korean soil could be open to more strategic flexibility, more kind of risks of entrapment, or there are concerns of people saying OPCON transfer could result in maybe not abrupt, but gradual diminishment of U.S.'s troop level below 28,500. So there are debates, but personally I would agree with Dr. Lee. I do support, I do not package in the right way, that it does not signal a kind of hollowing out our capabilities. I think it will be stimulus for both alliance to really evolve this relationship for the future.
Well, there's certainly a lot of issues remaining. I think it was a very successful summit. I think there was, pragmatism and honesty involved in both the summit itself as well as the joint fact sheet. So a lot of areas to follow going forward. I think we're running out of time. I'd like to thank you both for your great insights, and wish you safe travels, and to all you out there in podcast land, Happy New Year. See you with the Impossible State.